Tony Bloom investment has been confirmed. I mean, Tony Bloom with Jamestown Analytics, to be honest, from what I can see, and I'm not no expert, but anything he touches seems to turn to gold. I mean, it must be quite exciting to be a Hearts fan today.
And I've said it for months since Tony Bloom first came on the scene. These are exciting times for Hearts. They have to be. I've said about Rangers that the new ownership's in there. They may make mistakes. There may be teething troubles initially. It may have to get worse before it gets better. And I think there could be something similar there with Tony Bloom. He's been involved, but he didn't get the money in, so he was actually having quite a bit to say about the direction the club should be moving in. And Jamestown was involved in the appointment of Neil Critchley, but Jamestown had also pointed out that Derek McInnes was the man for the job on a whole series of various metrics, and they have got the right man in now. And now they've got the £10 million investment, and they've already been busy in the transfer market. This is really exciting times for Hearts. We've mentioned previously that I think an effort has been made now to get an answer one way or the other out of Lon Shankland to see if he's going to get on the plane on Saturday to go to the club's pre-season training camp. Derek McInnes has made that a priority since his first day in the job. And you feel as if it's getting very close to decision time for Lon Shankland. That's another bit that feeds into it. If Lon Shankland commits his future, I think that's another huge positive for a club which has that sort of momentum already. So early in the summer, they've got the right manager at last. That they are making clever, astute signings, which has given the squad a better look to it, a better balance. That'll be the plan. And, as we've said, they don't have European football to muddy the waters or congest the early season schedule for them. So it gives them a real chance to hit the ground running right at the start of the season and to lay down markers and say, look, I know the way Derek McInnes' mind works, and he loves it. And whether he's at Kilmarnock or Aberdeen, now Hearts, he goes into games against Celtic and Rangers believing that he can have a wrestle with them in the mud. That's always the intention. And in one-off games, he proved that he could do it at Kilmarnock on a number of different occasions. I think that he goes into this position now really excited by what he's got behind him in terms of a club, the facilities, the data, the analytics, the money, the investment. And he will feel that he can do that on a consistent level now. As I said to you, at Kilmarnock, he could do it in one-off games. Derek McInnes' aim here will be to show right from the start of the season that Hearts are a force to be reckoned with, and that they're going to, lay down something significant this season. I think they will. And as I said previously, knowing the way his mind works, I'll be surprised if he's not looking at the upheaval at Rangers and what's going to be required at Rangers, and he'll have an eye on, getting in between, separating the two, doing something really similar to what Aberdeen did at the start of last season. And having been there, around about Tynecastle, going to games when George Burley had that astonishing start to the season, when Hearts were up flying at the top end of the table, the momentum that the Hearts fans will then provide and get behind their team is monumental and monumentally important. And if you can turn that place into what Derek McInnes has talked about, turning it into, which is a place where it's not enjoyable, it's not a nice place to come. Everybody says they enjoy the atmosphere. He's trying to turn it into a place that teams are going to hate going to. And I can see that happening. I think if Hearts can really get off to a solid start to the season, get the points under the belt and build that momentum, I think it could be spectacularly interesting. What might be achievable through there. And you've mentioned it, Tony Bloom's track record, Dan. Everything he touches just seems to turn to gold. And I'm not suggesting for a single second that Hearts are going to win the top flight next season, because they won't. But I tell you what, they're going to make it really, really interesting up at the top. I think they're going to add another layer of intrigue to the whole scenario next season, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what that looks like.
In the comments, Luke Skywalker is asking where the £10 million goes. If I can find the comment, there it is. Is that £10 million for investment for players?
I think it is.
Jason says it's more analytics and scouting. Be surprised if they spend a lot. But if it's not for players, where would the £10 million go?
Well, I think this is the whole point of the investment. It's, I'm going to give you my analytics and my data, algorithms, and then I'm going to back that up by giving you some money to spend. I haven't seen the contract, so I don't know, legally defining black and white positions on it. What I would say to you is, I can imagine what makes sense to me is that he's offering Hearts this technology because he trusts it and he knows it works. And he's then saying to them, and here I'm going to give you some money to play with in the transfer market using my analytics because I know it works. And then I would imagine there might be some, I don't know how it's going to work. Is there a percentage kickback from any profits made from the players that his algorithms identify or his data identifies? Is that where he'll make a return on his money? I don't know, and I'm speculating because I haven't seen what the contract looks like. But it wouldn't surprise me if it was something like that. And that's a win-win. It's a win for Tony Bloom. It's a win for Hearts. It's a win for the fans. It's just an exciting project. And you've seen the success he's had with Saint-Gilloise in Belgium. That's an incredible story in itself. Now, I know that he's not got full ownership at Hearts, but he's going to have a big input. And it's definitely going to be worth watching. And especially at a time where they've got a manager like Derek McInnes in charge of it. I just think it seems as if the pieces of the jigsaw are falling nicely into place. I think it's a fascinating summer for them. And by the way, they have been really busy, haven't they, in the transfer market already? They've just been working away systematically. They've got, obviously their targets were all clearly defined and set out by the end of last season. And Derek McInnes will be working through that process of just examining what the options are, what the list look like, and they've not been slow in making adjustments and bringing in new recruits. I just think there's a real energy about Hearts just now, which is going to make them such an interesting view at the start of next season to see how it lands at the start of the Premier League season. I've just got a funny feeling it'll land quite well.
Aye. Well, Paul backs up what you're saying about Saint-Gilloise. He took USG from the second tier to champions in Belgium. Let's see what he can do. And look, I know I'm going to get tons of stuff.
That's a fairy story, by the way, that whole USG thing. It's absolutely astonishing. I mean, we looked into it at the time when Rangers were drawn against them in the Champions League qualifiers. It was remarkable. It is remarkable. What they've done is astonishing. I think I can't remember what it was. It was like something like 50 years or something they'd gone since winning the Belgian title, and they had fallen down the divisions, and they were not much above a sort of junior side. And then this transformation happened, and bit by bit, incrementally, season by season, stronger and stronger, and they developed and made themselves, one of the biggest forces in Belgian football all over again. It was a remarkable story, and I think they were playing in a stadium in the middle of a park in the outskirts of Brussels and all that. It's astonishing. And so if they can do that with a club that was, so far down the Belgian ladder, well, Hearts, they're not far down the Scottish ladder, not at all. They should be up there as the third force in the country. So that's what makes it so exciting. And the fact that Tony Bloom sees the potential in here to really get in amongst it and break up the dominance of Celtic primarily and Rangers secondarily, I think it makes it fascinating.
I know I'm going to get lots of stick for this, right? But I'm going to say it anyway because, with the dream team, Keith, do you know what I mean? We need to be honest to the viewers. I know you said they're not going to win the league next season, right? And obviously they're not going to win the league in the forthcoming campaign. But see, when you look around Europe, right, there's been at least one season since the turn of the century in almost every league you can think of where there's been a complete freak, where the stars have aligned. It's been a perfect storm. France have had Montpellier come from nowhere to win it. Lille, Germany have had Wolfsburg. AZ Alkmaar in Holland, Leicester in England.
Leverkusen.
Leverkusen, USG in Belgium. Look, I'm not saying that anyone is going to topple Celtic and Rangers just yet, but 40 years since another team won the top flight. I'm a wee bit kind of surprised that there's not been one season where, it's all been a bit mad.
I think the financial chasm is so big, Daniel, that it makes it less and less likely here. However, let's not underestimate what Tony Bloom is clearly kind of minded to attempt to do here.
Mm-hmm.
He's putting in significant sums. He's given the club the algorithms which have helped to bring Brighton, and Brighton's a fairy tale story in itself, what he's done there.
Right.
So there's every reason. It's not as if you're just going in and kind of with a Hail Mary here. There's a back catalogue behind Tony Bloom which suggests he's going to make an impact.
Mm-hmm.
And Derek McInnes has got a back catalogue which suggests he can make an impact, whether or not he's got analytics behind him, and this additional £10 million investment. I think it's really exciting. As I said to you, I repeat, I don't see Hearts winning the title next season. Let's just be clear about it. But I think they're going to make it really fascinating up the top end of the league. And I also think that Tony Bloom is taking a long-term approach, as he did in Belgium. You know, that didn't happen overnight either. It's a process of building. And Hearts are starting that building from a very strong position, which makes it even more interesting as far as I'm concerned.
I think it's going to be really fascinating to see how they get on. And as Luke says, anything is possible.